Okay, so this is one of my favorite classes, like really one of my favorite classes, and I hope I give it justice. We're in the middle of the Omer, which started after Passover, and it ends this coming weekend, I think, with Lag BaOmer. So you're gonna feel a heaviness that's kind of like been going on since after Passover. A lot of like miscommunication, relationship issues, heaviness. It's the energy of judgment that's predominant right now. So you might be feeling that, and that energy will shift once we hit Lag BaOmer. So we feel it, it's heavy. Okay, so getting into this, last week we spoke about prayer, and prayer was an internal request, right? Asking the Creator to help change you so that you could receive the light. We mentioned that the light, the blessings is always there, and it's us not having the capacity to hold it. So a nice example was, it's like pouring fine wine into like a dirty styrofoam cup, right? It's the blessings, that wine is no longer nice, it's gross, right? So you want your styrofoam cup to be like an elevated glass. And that's what happens when you work on you. So you're asking for strength to change you rather than to change the circumstances, okay? Okay, let's get into the new stuff. Any questions about last week? Last class? Okay. So in order to understand all these concepts, you have to understand the seed, okay? So once you grasp the seed, you can apply that to everything, okay? So the seed goes like this. Before creation, right? Imagine like before the Big Bang, and science and Kabbalah really go hand in hand. So all of this you could like learn science and it will just completely match up. Before the Big Bang, there was like nothingness, we'll call it, right? So I want you guys to like imagine like having that sense of like nothingness happening, right? So when there is light, what does the light do? The light shares. So imagine if you have a flashlight in space. Why is it dark? Why don't you see the light? You don't see it because light has to reflect off of something, right? If it's not reflecting off of something, it's almost like it's not, I don't want to say it's not there, but it doesn't show itself. So the second the light shines, in that instant, for it to be able to shine, it created a vessel to be able to receive the light. That's like an instantaneous action. That moment is what science calls the Big Bang, okay? So now I want you to imagine you have this amazing, endless sharing light, and you have this vessel, and the light is sharing, which is what the light wants to do, and the vessel is receiving, which is what the vessel is created to do. So everything seems happy, right? So now what's the problem? The problem is the vessel being created by the light has the DNA of the light within it, right? So it wants to be like the light. That's just how it is. When something is created from something, it has that likeness. To be like the light, it had to share, but it couldn't share because there's nothing to share with. It's made to receive. I'll pause and I'll go on a little tangent. The receiving and receiving and receiving also doesn't feel good. When we receive, like if I have a friendship where I take Shirin out, let's say I take her out every single day and I take her to the fanciest restaurant and I pay for her and whatever, and that is the extent of our friendship. How long would Shirin hang out with me until she's like, I need to either also pay for the lunch or I need to give back in some way? How long would it take? Maybe some people it would take 1 session, 5 sessions, a year. Whatever it is, at some point, you're like, I don't want to receive and not be able to give back. It doesn't feel good. That feeling is shame. And one of the worst feelings in the world is shame, okay? We don't want to feel shame. So going back to the vessel and the light was giving, the vessel was receiving, but the vessel wasn't able to earn, right? We want to earn. So what did it say? I can't give back to the light, so this contract has to stop. This agreement, this situation has to stop. When it stopped that situation, that agreement, it pulled away. That's called a simsum. It's a restriction. And in that moment where that restriction happened, the vessel shatters into millions of pieces, and a new contract is established. And okay, so in that moment, when the vessel says, I don't want to receive for free anymore. I want to also share. I want to earn. I want to have the ability to also earn the light, not just receive it. There is a restriction. The restriction is called a simsum. Okay, we'll touch upon that in future classes. It shatters and it breaks up into millions of pieces. Okay, at that moment, I want you to imagine like a curtain kind of falling. So that light is still shining. The vessels are all, imagine here, I'm giving like a visual. The vessel doesn't receive that light directly until it can get rid of that curtain, right? It has to earn. By doing spiritual earning, you're chipping away at this curtain, okay? If it's too difficult like that, imagine it like you got my horma and you've got like an ozone layer, you have a cloud, you have a curtain, you have something blocking the vessel from the light. And every time we're transforming our nature, what you're doing is you're removing a piece of that curtain. You're thinning out that curtain and allowing light to come in. So that is our job. We are the vessel. We're the vessels. Okay, we all used to be one. All of our souls were one. That's why we feel this like connection sometimes to one another. The reason we're shattered is because, or separate, is because if we understood that we're all one, it wouldn't be effort to give to the other person. It's easy for you to give to your child, right? It's a little harder to give to a stranger. You're not going to give the same way. So people had to feel other. It had to feel separate. So you have to go through that effort, that transformation. Okay, so that is the whole concept of the Big Bang. Okay, so that feeling where the vessel would receive without being able to give back was called bread of shame. Okay, it's the bread being like sustenance, like you're receiving the sustenance that has shame connected to it. Any time in life where you're receiving unearned blessings, okay, you haven't earned it, you have things that you haven't earned, it comes with it bread of shame. You can also give bread of shame. Bread of shame can be between you and other people. It could be between you and the Creator. And part of the work, most of the work we're doing here is to kind of balance that out. So we're not over giving, we're not over receiving. So the sages explain that the anxiety and sadness and depression that people feel is all a result of bread of shame. It's unearned energy that you received. That's a huge thing. Okay, so like an example would be, imagine like my daughter just started driving, okay? And without giving out too much and making her feel sad, I don't feel like she's earned the privilege to be able to be free, right? And if I give her that freedom that she has, it's gonna, let me give another extreme example. Let's say you have a child, a teenager, and they're like a trust fund baby, and they have an unlimited credit card, right? And instead of growing and working on what they need to work on, anytime they feel lack, anytime they feel needy, anytime they feel insecure, anytime they feel sad, they can escape because they could buy something, they could distract themselves. What are they doing? Every time they buy something, they plan another trip, they do this, they do, what are you doing? I'm not saying purchasing or going on trips are bad, but when you're using that as an escape to go through your process, to feel, to sit in that lack and figure out what's coming out of it and, you know, and process it, it's unearned. So we all know that those kids, what happens to them when they get older? They're all depressed, right? Why? They didn't earn it. So going back to my child, I don't feel like she's earning her privilege to just be free. I feel like it's a lot of energy and she's not going to have the vessel to contain it, and it's not going to go well unless she could work somehow towards earning it, whether it's raising her grades, calling and checking in and showing she's responsible, whatever that earning is on that level. So that applies to all of us, right? When we have any kind of blessings, there's a certain effort that you need to put in to be able to earn it and sustain it.
So you're saying there's bread of shame between us and other people, but then you said there's also bread of shame between us and the Creator.
Yes.
What's an example of bread of shame between us and the Creator?
Okay, an example, and I'm gonna look more into it so I can give you a deeper example next time, but what comes to mind right now is imagine someone who has no relationship with the creator. They think they did it, right?
Got it.
You think you did it. You're not acknowledging where it's coming from. It's gratitude, but it's a little more than gratitude, because gratitude alone is one step, but the effort that you put into maintaining a relationship with the creator and your transformation is what eliminates that bread of shame. So I guess mostly it's your work. It's your physical and spiritual work. Yeah, that's what it is. It's physical and spiritual work.
Balance that. Like, for example, just a very dumb example. If somebody wins the lottery.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Where is the balance in that though? Because you've been like, you didn't earn it, but it's a very good thing to receive. So you can have gratitude, I guess, but beyond that.
So I think what happens in those situations is, what has been successful that I have seen is they kind of like put it away and they don't receive it all at once. And they'll live in a way where it's coming in bits, and they kind of like rise to it. If they just buy their mansion and burn through it and do nothing, they won't maintain it. They'll lose it. So they could receive it, right, physically, but if they're not working to grow, they won't be able to maintain it.
Also
right?
Giving
Yeah.
some of it away. Charity
Always. Tithing is a concept, not just in Judaism. It's a very spiritual concept in Christianity and a lot of other spiritual beliefs, where you get rid of 10% of what you earn. It's not yours. And if you don't get rid of that 10%, somehow it will escape you. You'll have random parking tickets, God forbid, medical bills.
Taxes.
Yeah, somehow that money is going to escape you. So it's better for you to be proactive and get rid of it. Anything else?
What if you have an issue receiving? Like you always kind of feel like it's a bread of shame, even though it's not. Like you
So
worked hard,
that's bread of
you've
shame
done
the other way. You're not you're giving the other person bread of shame because you're not allowing them to give to you. There has to be a circuitry. Right? Like if you're not letting someone share with you, what are you kind of saying? You're kind of saying, no, I'm the only one who's giving. You're never gonna give. Kiss my ring. Right?
Okay, I didn't think about it.
We don't think about it that way because we don't feel that way, but that has to be there. It's also I'm not saying in this case, but there's a sense of control that's attached to it. There's a sense of agenda, maybe manipulation, and we all do it, you know.
Not take it?
When you're like, I will not receive ever, you know, like no way,
Like
no
you
way, no way.
feel bad receiving.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. Like it's like you think it comes from a humble place, but it's from
Well,
something
you have
else.
to see where the person is giving from.
Yeah.
Right? If someone is giving too much, they're going to destroy their relationship with you. Anytime you overgive to someone, they're going to resent you and they're not going to know why. They're not going to want to be with you. They're going to try to like find ways subconsciously to sabotage the relationship.
Right.
So maybe this situation that you're thinking in your head is someone who's overgiving.
Okay.
Maybe. And that makes us all uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Rather than someone who genuinely, without
Right.
strings attached,
Right. Right. Okay.
wants to give to you.
Yeah.
In which case it's easier to receive because you can feel,
Yeah, that mutuality.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Were you gonna say something?
No, I can relate to that, but yeah, that's a good question. That's all.
And there's a lot of that, I feel like, amongst women in our community. There's a lot of like,
I mean, Tarot is a thing.
Tarot is a
Yes,
thing. Yeah, both ways. Like they feel like they're giving and then they feel like I gave so much to this person. How could they blah, blah, blah. But that wasn't really giving, because when you're giving, you're thinking of the other person. If you're giving in a way where you're expecting something back, you're thinking of yourself.
Right. Right.
And that's not really giving, that's manipulating.
Right.
Okay, so one concept that always keep in mind is you're either connected to the light or you're disconnected. There's no in between, right? You're either plugged in or you're not. And we called it the 99 because we have the 1% world, which is our physical world that we see, but it's not the full picture, right? We only see 1% of the world. The rest of the spiritual aspect is the 99. So you always have to like connect to that level. And when things happen, it's always that filter through your tikkun. So for instance, this week, a lot of people had different issues that came up in relationships. And the ongoing theme is, why is this in my movie? And just as a reminder, it's in your movie because there's something in you that's unresolved, that's attracting this situation. And each time it's an opportunity for you to resolve that thing within you. So whether it's your need to speak up or your need not to speak up, or how you speak up, or establishing a boundary, or, you know, it's triggering to you because you feel abandonment, it's, you know, or because you feel envious, or because you feel whatever it is that's being triggered over and over, it's just to look within. It's never, ever, ever the other person. Okay. So, okay, somebody said to me, and I'm bringing this up because I feel like when I get questions, sometimes the questions like linger with me, and I feel like maybe the class needs to hear it. So somebody said, I used to be this happy, peppy person, and then I married this spouse, and now I'm bitter and I'm sarcastic, and why did he do that to me? Blah, blah, blah. So that sarcasm and bitterness, and this is so hard to swallow because we all have this on some level. We all feel like our marriages, our relationships, our whatever, bring out something within us. And it's very hard to think that maybe that trait was always within us, right? So the example is when someone gets an MRI and something shows up, the MRI didn't cause that thing to show up. That thing was already there. The MRI revealed it, right? So in your marriage, in your friendship, that bitterness that's coming out of you, the spouse didn't create that. The spouse was the MRI that revealed that. Okay? With that, I was explaining that the Talmud says something about a man who is selfish and doesn't work on himself attracts the destroyer as a wife. And it's kind of like, what does that mean? But if you think about it, what is happening? It's destroying that shell. It's destroying that ego. It's destroying that wall that we have up so that we could go within. Right? Maybe that's a little...
Who's this? The wife is destroying?
Yeah. But
That
to
shell
build.
in
To
the
build.
husband.
Yes,
To
not
help
in a
him
bad
grow,
way.
to
Because
help him grow.
yes, because your partner is even called an Ezer Kenegdo, a challenging helper, like a helper against him. That's what the spouse is referred to. What does that mean? What is a challenging helper or a helper against you? How is against you a partner?
Good thing, yeah.
But the against you is because you're always growing. You know what I mean? If you don't have that, there's no growth. So your partner, any relationship, your in-laws, your parents, your siblings, your friends, and everybody you come across is gonna open that little, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't get better, it doesn't get easier, it just gets more fun.
Sarah, does it have to be your spouse who does it, or could it be your in-laws
And
who do it?
anybody.
Okay.
You're lucky if it's not your spouse.
Okay. But it could be in-laws.
And yeah, and if you don't address it, it just gets closer and closer and closer.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, so we finished that part, but I want to go into the whole concept of giving and receiving. So we're kind of combining two classes. And I remember we spoke about this a lot, so that's why I was thinking about you a lot when I was preparing again. Balanced giving is always a challenge because we want to be the nice person. We want to give. We want to give to our children. We want to give to our friends. And sometimes we're overgiving. Sometimes we feel like we want that spouse who, and I always joke about this, there's somebody that we know distantly whose husband would literally hold her purse for her the whole time at a party, like take her food, stand next to her, and literally feed her, literally. And the joke was, I used to be like, damn, I want that husband. That's amazing. But in reality, that husband would destroy your marriage, right? Like it sounds great in the beginning, maybe not. But that kind of overgiving doesn't work well, right? So you'll see even like relationships, like imagine there's a girl and a guy, and the guy's good looking and tall and handsome and wealthy and whatever, like spiritual and everything that you could think of, musical, this, that, whatever. But he's over giving to the girl, and the girl doesn't want it. So the girl tries to take space or goes, stop giving me so much, or I don't want these gifts. What does he do? He gets anxious. And then what? He steps it up. What happens then? She just can't. You feel suffocated. You feel trapped. It's a result of over giving. So imagine she breaks up with him, and she might be with someone like not as good, an asshole, whatever, like, but she'll be fulfilled because there's a circuitry that happens. So that comes up a lot with how we are with our children, with how we are with friends, with how we are with in-laws. Maybe we're not putting the boundaries we need to. Maybe we're being really nice and then we expect something in return. Maybe we're like, I picked up his kid 50 times and they never offered to pick up my kid. Like, where does that balance come from? No, we're all quiet, no thoughts, no questions.
You're literally
Thinking.
bringing up something that I've been like, you're on it. Yeah, you're on it. Exactly.
Do you want to workshop anything? Is there?
I mean, I don't know who's gonna watch this.
I could turn it off. Let me say one more topic and I'll turn it off. So some people say I'm a good person. What's the problem with overgiving? Okay, like I have a relationship in my life where this will happen and I'll tell the person you need to stop. And the person's like, but I'm being nice. I'm doing this for you. And the example is, imagine this is my cup and I'm trying to pour this pitcher into this cup, right? Imagine this is the person's love, this is the person's affection, this is whatever the person is trying to do for me, but it's chaos because it's spilling everywhere, right? If this is my vessel, you have to be sensitive to how you give it. You have to be sensitive to how you deliver it. Do they want it? Like, let's say you're sharing a story. Like a lot of times, I know I tend to speak a lot. I know I'm an oversharer. So what I do now is I kind of pause, I assess the body language, and I'll ask, do you want to hear this? Sometimes they'll say no, and that's okay, great, at least I know, right? It's not like an offense thing. We have to always kind of evaluate everything, whether we're speaking, whether we're giving, that we think we're being kind, but there's a limit, right? And you want to be sensitive. Another example is, let's say, giving gifts. Sometimes someone will just give a gift, like, imagine you go to someone's house who's like, I don't know, one of those sugar-free, vegan, blah, 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 and you just bring a box of chocolates because that's what you bought for, I don't know, all the teachers. And you're not being sensitive that this teacher, for instance, is a vegan. You're like, she'll figure it out. She can re-gift it. Are you giving in that situation? No, you're taking. You're taking. You're losing, you're depleting your energy resources. So over-giving is a big, big, big problem. Okay, I'm gonna stop this so we could workshop.
Go through the class.
So we all have that one friend who asks for advice and you give the advice and they're not even listening to you, right? Like you just said it and they keep going in circles. Oh, well, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, they're not hearing you. They don't have the space. They don't have the vessel to hear what you're saying. Or sometimes maybe they'll hear you, but they won't do anything with it. Not because they want to and they're not there yet, but like they're completely not ready. Let me give you an example. Like if you keep telling an alcoholic that they have to stop drinking, if they are not ready and able to hear you and you're just saying, bah, 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 you're not adding anything. That's a form of bread of shame, right? You're giving advice, you're giving love, you're giving, but they don't have the capacity, they're not ready for it.
But even if they've asked you for advice and they're...
If someone asks you, so we all have a friend like this, and I'm thinking of somebody.
About it. Is that an ask?
Are they complaining to just vent? Because people who are complaining are actually taking energy, right? If you're complaining to grow, or if you're complaining to vent, and it's a short thing that you're gonna do for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to have clarity and process and move on, That's one thing. But when you're doing that to 50 people, and this is your MO, what are you doing? Every time you complain, you're grabbing these tidbits of energy. They're crumbs of light, right? And what happens is when you get these like small pleasures, you're delaying that endless light. These things are like a strobe light. You feel good for a minute. It's like telling someone off. You feel good for like a second, like drugs. And then what happens? You feel like shit afterwards. You've depleted yourself. So if somebody is complaining, don't enable it. Like you could hear it. You can be like, okay, let's hear this for 10 minutes. And then you can say, we've spoken about this already.
And Sarah, let's say you have birthday parties and someone comes and they don't bring gifts 2-3 times, like 2-3 different birthday parties that you've had for your kids, the same person doesn't bring a gift. When you go to their kid's birthday, your kid wants to take a gift. Would it be okay to give even though
Of course it
they
is.
don't
Of
give?
course it is. Because you're not giving,
With the expectation of getting anything. Okay.
you're not the effect.
Okay.
Their action has nothing to do with what you do. If you're thinking about what they did, you are now the effect. It's a result of.
So I have to buy that without the mindset of, oh, I'm going to give something little because, okay.
Yeah, you're just the cause. If you want to, you'll give, and you'll give based on what you feel.
Okay. Thank you.
So if somebody is like constantly going in a circle and wants to talk to you about the same thing, but you've clearly stated multiple times, I don't want to talk about this, and you've already gone through the telling them off part where it feels good for a second, but then you feel like shit and you're like replaying the conversation. What do you, in that situation, you are supposed to just walk away and stop.
Yeah, you're done. You said we've had this conversation. First of all, don't feel guilty about telling them off. Maybe there's a better way you could have handled it, right?
You've already
But
tried
it's
to
done.
handle it a better way,
Yeah.
but that didn't work.
And you can say, we've had this conversation. I can't talk about this anymore. I love you. I respect you. Whatever it is, we're not going to talk about this
So
anymore.
then ignoring a call, blocking the person.
If that's what you need to do because the person is not respecting a boundary, that's okay.
Okay.
Right?
What if they want to apologize?
Well, they can
Sorry,
apologize.
you're not
No,
giving
it's
them a
fine.
response.
Yeah.
No, but if you're not, are you giving them?
They don't want to.
But
They're more of like, I don't know what I did. I don't know why she's not talking to me. Like that.
They want clarity.
No, but they already know the truth. There is no clarity.
you're not responsible to make people feel good. You say what you need to say. You can say it 1 time, 5 times, whatever.
Yeah.
But you don't need to deplete yourself and drain yourself to make sure the person, because sometimes people don't want to
Yes.
get it,
Agree with that.
right?
Yeah.
They don't want to come to terms with whatever it
Yeah.
is.
They don't want to feel good.
Or they want to play, they want to play the victim.
Yeah.
We get energy when we play the victim.
Yes.
It feels good to play the victim,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And to perpetuate the cycle of victimhood.
People who have a lot of drama in their lives, and I hate to say this, especially on film, but if you're constantly recreating that, you're attracting that. You want that, right? You gravitate towards that to some degree, whether you're conscious or not, you know?
Yeah.
So this person might be of that category is what I'm trying to say. This
Yes.
might be like a thing.
Okay.
And that's taking that drama. Imagine you're stealing energy. It's exciting. It's
Yeah. But then, like, what you're saying is at the end of all of these cycles, I end up feeling that.
yes. And you don't need to drain yourself. You
Yeah.
create your boundary, and your boundary is giving. You get why? By not allowing that cycle of bread of shame to happen, you're being a giving person. You're being like the light. You're being the cause rather than the effect.
Okay. Even though it's not affecting a change in the other person?
Immediately. It doesn't need to. You're not responsible to change the other person.
Okay.
Right? But by you creating that boundary, they're no longer creating like a hole in your bucket, in the bucket of that relationship with you.
Yes. But in other people's buckets, probably.
You can't control that, right? That's her movie. That's her reality.
Okay.
You're itching, yeah.
Where did the bread of shame come in this conversation?
I love that question. So the bread of shame comes in where the drama person keeps coming in and she's getting this unearned energy, this unearned, like, right? She's getting it from two places. One, she's burning it through Jasmine, and she's getting it from the universe, because when you have that mindset that like, oh, look at me, I'm complaining mindset, it's kind of both ways in that situation.
What if someone's really close to you and you're their person
That's okay.
and they call and from the beginning to end they're like, oh, this happened, oh my god, this happened, like nagging, complaining, what? And it's someone very important to me, and I kind of want her to release it, but how do I let her release it without draining me? How do I protect myself while letting her do it? Is there a way?
Yeah, so when you're saying this happens, is this person's personality is like this? This is just what they do. It's just how they are.
It's how they are. It's just, I don't see it changing.
You don't have to get it. I think the car guy will get it. Don't worry. I think just establishing boundaries. Let's talk about this for 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then let's, you can change sorry, yeah. And then you can change the subject. Or then you could say, you know what? Do you need a vent? Do you want advice?
Okay. So you do ask
Yeah.
the complainer?
Yeah, you could say, do you want
If it's a
advice or do you just want a
venting, or if
vent?
it's can I offer you? Oh, is that your sister's?
Yeah. 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 Any other questions?
I have a quick question.
Yeah?
If I have a gift in the house, like from the kids, like birthday party,
And you want to regift
gift
it?
I shouldn't do it.
It's a tricky one. If you have it and you just want to get rid of it, yeah. Because you're not thinking of the other person. You're just thinking, let me get rid of this item.
But what should I
But
was thinking about it, but what am I gonna do it? Just donate it?
Yeah. If you're giving something to someone and it's not for them, it's for you. It's because you want to get rid of this. Right? Unless they want it. Yeah. Unless they want it and you happen to have it. But if you're just
think they're gonna like it and they would want it.
Yeah. If you're just doing it to get rid of it, yeah, that's
I want my kids to learn that, Sometimes they tell me, like, Mommy, why for my birthday you just bring things that doesn't make
it doesn't matter. You should teach them to not care. Because them coming to the birthday and celebrating that's the important part, right? The gift is
No, but sometimes they bring them things that are for 2-year-old, and they're like 10 years old.
do they get upset?
Sometimes they say, do you think but I always go buy them gift. I ask your friend what she likes, and we go always buy it. So then they ask me, why
didn't they do it back?
to me?
Yeah.
You always get them good gifts, but they don't get us gifts.
You could just explain
what do they like,
You could just explain not everybody thinks the same way, or not everybody, and that's okay. You should teach them not to expect. You should teach them that not to even I know it doesn't come naturally to everybody, but almost like who cares? Like really, who cares? They gave me this, they didn't give me this. It's irrelevant.
Yeah, I tell them we can buy it. Why do you want them to bring it?
Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, no, you say that, but for example, my daughter, when she gets a gift, she feels validated. She feels good about herself, like someone cared. So it's hard to just say, don't care, don't worry, or who cares, because it makes her feel good when someone cared enough to think about what she would like. And
yes.
So how does...
But when someone doesn't,
It shouldn't
yes. The gift is like the cherry on top.
Right, I get it.
It's not expected. If they don't have the wherewithal, the capacity, the sensitivity, whatever, to give it to you the right way, by you, what are you going to do being upset about that? And when you're upset, that means you had that expectation. Every time you get a gift, it should be like a surprise. It should be like, oh my God, you know what I mean? I was not expecting this. And it's hard to instill that in kids, but if you have that attitude and that mindset, they'll pick up on it.
Right.
And then like a sensitive gift is like, oh my God, Mom, can you believe it? Like it becomes like that rather than,
Right.
Good?
One more question.
Yeah.
Let's say you got like a gift card to a store that you really like, but you didn't earn it.
So how'd you get it?
From the credit card company.
Okay, you earned it.
You did?
You earned it, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, your credit score, your spending, you earned it.
okay.
Unearned is kind of like when you take something without it being given to you. And the example that I gave last time is like sometimes you go into like a hotel and you're like, oh, well, give me this and now give me an upgrade and now give me, what are we doing? You're just taking.
Oh, okay.
And people think they're being like smart, but what's really happening is you're receiving unearned energy that's going to come out of somewhere. So those kind of people are going to experience a greater depression. They will. Pay attention to it. They'll be more sad. Like the loss of light is going to be there. If something bad happens, like we went on a trip and the room that we were in lost power and it was raining and it was 1 a.m., right? So they offered us an upgrade. That's very different than going and demanding, right? It's the difference between someone, that we spoke about this the last round, having a birthday cake. Imagine it's your birthday. Imagine it's your birthday, okay? And you know I'm having a birthday party for you. And you come to my house and everyone's here, all your friends are here, and you're starving. And there's a cake in the fridge with your name on it. And you're like, well, it's my cake, my name's on it, I'm just gonna go eat it. And you go in the fridge and you start double fisting the cake before we present it to you. What is the problem with that? Was that cake not intended for you?
It just wasn't the way that it was intended.
Yeah, you took it, you didn't receive it, right? So if we wait to receive things, you'll have even more blessings and abundance than if you take. When you feel like we're being like zerang, we're being smart, we're being by like taking, you're taking these crumbs and you're missing the whole thing, right? And we do that with all of our relationships too, right? Sometimes we're like, you need to do, you know, like someone will say, this is an easy one. I had your kids last Saturday night, so you have to have them this Saturday night. Like, it's my pleasure to have them. But the fact that this person thinks like this, right? You're thinking in this like transactional tit for tat way.
To the business.
Yeah. And I'm not saying don't have that. There are times and places where you need to, but you need to be coming from a place of giving and sharing with your relationships. If it's
Sometimes you feel like you're being taken advantage of, you know?
you'll feel that. Okay, open it up.
A carpool, let's say, and for an example, someone, like I will always pick up and drop off when it's my day, even if my kids are not gonna be there, they decided to have a play date that day. And another parent will say, oh, my kid is not gonna be there for the next 2 days, so you guys figure
Figure it
out
out
those
yourself.
days. It feels like,
Unfair.
yeah, like where's the responsibility? But I'm the one who chose to take on that responsibility and not say anything about it. And they chose to say something about it. So where am I being taken advantage of, or am I not speaking up for myself? I don't know where.
You could figure out that balance. Do you feel like you want to say something? You could. You could say, look, even when my kids don't go to school, I do this. If you're able to, I'd appreciate,
Yeah, that's true.
you know?
You could say, I think we should make a rule that even if your kids aren't there, you don't want to leave the other family hanging. So we should all just stick to the days that we have to do, whether or not the kid's there or not.
Sometimes some people have shortcomings that they don't see themselves, and just explaining it, like,
Right.
you know, and maybe they feel like they're being smart by like, you know, pulling one like that.
Right.
And you saying it is kind of creating that balance, so there's no bread of shame in that situation.
Right.
Maybe they don't even realize that they're doing
Yeah,
that.
that's what I assumed. I feel like it's not even realized, and
They're just not aware.
yeah.
That's so nice of you.
I, you know, it's like you're just doing your thing, you know. You-
But not everybody feels that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a sense of responsibility, like these kids gotta get home. You know. Yeah.
Yeah. So taking and receiving. Any questions? I'm going to turn this off because I want to workshop with